Hi, my name's Vince Sheehan and today I'd like to talk about The Big Heat, the 1953 film noir classic directed by Fritz Lang, starring Glenn Ford, Gloria Graham and Lee Marvin. I'd like to go through this film exploring the structure of its plot as well as the some of the themes that crop up in it. Now I suppose if you could sum this film up in a sentence or so, it would be something like a one man's fight against a powerful criminal gang, his fight against police corruption and his fight to bring the killers, the murderers of his wife, to justice. Pretty heavy stuff. And the film is roughly in 3 acts, and Act 1 centres around the suicide of a police chief, who we see actually kill himself at the very opening of the film, and we see his wife appear in the aftermath. Mrs. Duncan, her name is, and she contacts Lagana, who is the criminal boss, and he gives directions about what to do. So already we know that something's not right here when the wife of the cop who's committed suicide seems to be in league with the local criminal gang. The police chief, Duncan, who's committed suicide, leaves a letter behind which Mrs. Duncan hides away. Then we meet Police Sergeant Dave Banyan, played by Glenn Ford. And Banyan is investigating this suicide. It seems like a fairly straightforward case. He meets with Mrs. Duncan, the widow, who seems more upset about it now than she was when it happened. And things seem fairly normal as these things go, except Banyan receives a tip-off from this lady who hangs around bars called Lucy Chapman, and he finds out that from Lucy Chapman, who was having an affair with Police Chief Duncan, that he had no intention of ending his life. Something fishy is going on. She also lets Banyan know that he wanted to turn over a new leaf. He wanted to start his life again. He wanted to be divorced from his wife, Mrs. Duncan. Banyan leaves Lucy Chapman, but he's soon alerted next day to the news that she has been murdered after she was seen talking to Banyan. Banyan now thinks that something certainly is not right here. Something unsavoury is happening behind the scenes. The criminal gang, headed by Lagana, but Lagana's right-hand man is this ruthless character called Vince Stone, played by Lee Marvin. They're beginning to get worried about Banyan, because they see that Banyan's a good guy who wants to get to the truth, who isn't corrupt like Banyan's superiors in the police, and they're a bit worried about what Banyan's going to uncover, how far he's going to go. So they start piling the pressure on Banyan. Banyan is a family man and madly in love with his wife, and they've got a daughter, Joyce, but this investigation is having an effect on his home life because they're getting phone calls at home telling Banyan to stop getting involved. And this act comes to a heart-stopping conclusion whereby a car bomb, which was intended for Banyan to get rid of him, takes the life of Banyan's wife instead. Banyan now is more determined than ever to get to the bottom of this. Nothing's going to stop him now that his wife has been killed. Act 2 makes up really the bulk of the film. It's really concerned with Banyan's investigations and Banyan getting to the bottom of all this. Banyan realises that his superiors and even the police commissioner himself are entirely corrupt and under the pay of Lagana, the gang lord. He's kind of forced out of the police force, and he leaves and he decides to go it alone as a kind of rogue agent. So Banyan goes to this place, this mechanic's place, where he finds out that this guy called Slim, who is probably involved in his wife's murder, worked, but no one will tell him anything about him, certainly not the proprietor of this business. Although this lady, who feels sorry for Banyan, who works in the reception, decides to approach Banyan afterwards, and she gives a description of Larry Gordon, the right-hand man of Vince Stone, who's high up in the gang, and she gives a description of Larry Gordon, who came to hire Slim from this car yard. So Banyan sorts out this this trap for Larry, because he knows he drinks at this place called The Retreat, where he met Lucy Chapman before. He gets his friend to phone up The Retreat asking for Larry, and he's hoping that Larry will make himself known at The Retreat. But instead, Banyan comes across Vince Stone, who is this horribly misogynistic character who threatens this woman, burns a cigar into her hand, and he's confronted by Banyan. And Vince Stone knows about Banyan. He knows how Banyan has also confronted his boss Lagana in his home. But Vince Stone can't make a big deal about this. He doesn't want to attract too much attention, so he lets Banyan go. But Vince Stone's girlfriend, Debbie, played by Gloria Graham, she decides to follow Banyan out. She seems attracted to this guy, and indeed she goes back to Banyan's place, and they get to know each other a bit more, and Banyan explains how his wife was murdered. But he doesn't trust her completely because he knows that she's Vince Stone's girlfriend. But Banyan knows that she is the key to knowing who this Larry is who killed his wife. Now here we have the most horrific part of the whole film. Debbie goes back to her place with Vince Stone, and he finds out where she's been with Banyan, and in a fit of rage and of jealousy, he throws a boiling hot pot of coffee in her face, disfiguring her terribly. This beautiful young woman all of a sudden is left feeling suicidal because of what's happened to her. The disfigured Debbie then returns to Banyan and just tells Banyan everything she knows about this Larry. She's got it in for Vince now. She's very much on Banyan's side. She's going to fight the gang alongside Banyan. Now it's here, armed with Debbie's information and with the help of the lady who assisted him before in the car yard, Banyan finally tracks down his wife's murderer, Larry Gordon, and he leaves him to the mercy of his murderous fellow gang members, who sure enough track him down and kill him. Banyan then confronts Mrs. Duncan, because Mrs. Duncan, the widow, seems to have a hold over this gang. And the reason why she has a hold over them is because her husband, before he committed suicide, wanted to turn over a new leaf. He was indeed corrupt himself, and he'd written a letter which he was going to send to the press exposing everyone, but he committed suicide before he revealed this letter. Mrs. Duncan hid the letter in her place, and there's nothing Lagana and the rest of the gang can do but to keep her happy and paying her loads of money to stop her revealing a letter. Banyan knows this, he confronts her, and Mrs. Duncan seems to be one of the most coldly calculating and evil people in the whole film. Banyan then realises that he's told that the police guard who are looking after his daughter has been told to go away. It seems now that the gang want to force Banyan out into the open by threatening his daughter. And this takes us into the final act, Act 3. Banyan gets his old pals, many of them old army people, including his brother-in-law, to look after his daughter. And it seems some of Banyan's old colleagues from the police have decided to turn over a new leaf. They've realised that they want to do things right. They've turned their back on Lagana and his cronies. And Mrs. Duncan is approached by Debbie, Vince Stone's girlfriend, Debbie, of course, who had the coffee thrown in her face, who was now working with Banyan, and Debbie murders her. And then Debbie goes and confronts Vince Stone and throws coffee over his face in retaliation. Banyan comes in, and there's this almighty confrontation between the two. And eventually Vince Stone is arrested, but Debbie dies because she's shot by Vince Stone. Then the letter that Duncan, the police chief, had written to expose this gang is sent to the press because Debbie had managed to get hold of the letter, and Lagana and a crooked police commissioner are brought to justice, and Banyan is reinstated in his job. And that's the end of the film. And you know, some of the themes that crop up, classic kind of film noir themes of vigilante, detective, police corruption, femme fatale, facial disfigurement as well, quite a strong theme with that shocking scene with the coffee thrown in Debbie's face. The idea of the family man driven to desperation, driven to breaking point. The idea of a man of integrity amongst a mass of thieves and crooks. And it's such an enjoyable film, very taut in its construction. Great performances by Glenn Ford. Gloria Graham shines on the screen. She's a fascinating character, has real kind of depth and attractiveness to her character. Lee Marvin is absolutely loathsome as Vince Stone, and that scene where he throws a coffee in her face is truly shocking even 70 years later. I mean, it really is. It's a film which really has much of the darkness of the human heart in it, but it's a film which Banyan, the kind of lone maverick cop, we really sympathise with him and his journey for justice and his pursuit of cleansing his town of corruption. So The Big Heat's a hugely enjoyable film. Please check it out if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't seen it for a while, check it out again. A good story and very well directed and acted. Thanks for watching. Bye.